There's no decision more important in the NFL than hiring a head coach. When you nail a hire, the rewards are endless. Unlike great players, a great coach can span decades and lead you to the promised land. Oh, but when a team screws it up, it sends the franchise into a tailspin. Almost every team has had a miss or two, unless you're the Steelers, in which case your head coach will serve longer than a Supreme Court justice. But these teams, oh my, these teams can't hire head coaches for shit. Let's look at them, shall we? That's coming up right after this. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and the last 8 NFL teams are standing. And thankfully, none of them are the Cowboys. But hey, you can use my code 5points, and all first-time users on PrizePicks will receive an instant deposit match up to $100. If you deposit $69, PrizePicks will give you $69. Nice. What you do is pick 2 to 6 players and then decide if they will get more or less of their PrizePick projection, and you can win this 25 times your money on any entry. This week, I've got Odell Beckham less receiving yards, but Lamar Jackson more passing yards, and Josh Allen less passing yards than projected. PrizePicks is always running new and exciting promotions like Taco Tuesday, Demons and Goblins, and Flex Fridays and more. Your money is safe and can be easily withdrawn. Collect those winnings, baby, and don't forget, these are the eligible states. So, after this video, first time users go to prizepicks.com or download the app from the link below and use my code 5points for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Again, that's promo code 5points on PrizePicks. The Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns might be the greatest case study of it all when it comes to missing on head coaches. Sure, they might not have as many coaches as they've had quarterbacks since their revival in 1999, but it's not far off. Let's run down the list. Chris Palmer, Butch Davis, Terry Robisky, Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangina, Pat Shurmur, Rob Chudinsky, Mike Pettin, Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Freddie Kitchens, and finally, Kevin Stefanski. As the saying goes, the 12th time's usually a charm. For a team so quick to pull the trigger and fire head coaches, the most head-scratching decision they made or didn't make was with Hugh Jackson. Somehow, after 2 seasons, Jackson managed to stick around despite compiling a record of 1-31 in 2016 and 2017. Either he's the most persuasive man of all time, or he had some incredible dirt on the Browns ownership, which apparently isn't that hard to find. The Browns were also dumb enough to promote Freddie Kitchens from running backs coach all the way to head coach in the span of just a few months. And yeah, you might have guessed that didn't work out too well. It's okay though, Kitchens has now landed on his feet in a very prestigious role as tight ends coach and run game coordinator for the University of North Carolina. Denver Broncos. Since they fired the legendary Mike Shanahan in January of 2009, the Denver Broncos have employed 9 different head coaches. Josh McFucking-Daniels, interim Eric Stoodsville, John Fox, Gary Kubiak, Vance Joseph, who's having the time of his life, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett, interim Jerry Rosburg, and finally, Sean Payton. Much, but never enough has already been said about Josh McDaniels on this channel, but unlike the Raiders, they didn't have forewarning that he was a snake in the grass. John Fox was the right hire at the time and delivered 4 straight playoff seasons in Denver, because he had Peyton Manning, but could never get a talented team over the hump. Gary Kubiak was the best coach in this span, winning Super Bowl 50 in his first year in Denver, but the Broncos got extremely unlucky when he had to step away after just 2 seasons due to health concerns. Those health concerns were, of course, heart palpitations from having to watch Paxton Lynch play quarterback. Vance Joseph and Vic Fangio never got Denver to the playoffs or even to 500, but the real loser was, of course, Nathaniel Hackett, who didn't even make it to the end of his first season. Yes, it was a swing and a miss to hire Hackett, who had the edge of a butter knife, but the biggest misstep was bringing him on thinking it would lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver. Hackett is widely regarded as the most incompetent coach of the 21st century and was so bad at clock management that they had to hire a separate coach to hold a stopwatch like he was timing 40s at the NFL Combine. That guy was Jerry Rosburg, who eventually had to step in as the interim head coach when Hackett finally got fired after a Christmas beatdown. Maybe the Broncos should have just kept Rosberg, but they had to take another huge swing and trade a first and second round pick for former Saints head coach Sean Payton. Yeah, draft capital for a coach. The jury is still out on that after an 8-9 start in the Mile High City. The New York Giants, in between Tom Coughlin and Brian Daboll, there laid the dark days for the New York Giants. In fact, I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet with Daboll, but I know for sure he's better than the three guys who came before him. Coughlin's successor was Ben McAdoo in his Walmart haircut and oversized suit, who, believe it or not, actually managed to lead the Giants to a playoff game in 2016, but was the man who presided over the infamous boat picture. He also had the bad sense to bench Eli Manning for Geno Smith, and this is pre-revival Geno Smith. Then reversed course after just one game, snapping Eli's streak of 210 straight starts for no fucking good reason. But compared to Pat Shurmur and Joe Judge, he might as well have been a football savant. Shurmur had already proved in Cleveland that he wasn't worthy of leading a football team. You're telling me this face doesn't inspire confidence? And Joe Judge was the master of the untimely quarterback sneak. At least Shurmur had experience. Judge was merely the special teams coach in New England. And also by that time, we all had plenty of evidence that if you plucked a coach from the Belichick tree, you deserved what you got, like inviting the Joker onto your talk show. Brian Daboll had an excellent start to his tenure in 2022, winning the first playoff game in New York since Super Bowl 46, but the hype was tempered considerably just a year removed. The Houston Texans. The Texans have, without a doubt, found their head coach of the present and future in DeMeco Ryans, who won his first playoff game and could very well take home Coach of the Year honors as a first-timer in 2023. But before they settled on Ryans, things were uglier in Houston than James Harden without his beard. Their longest tenured head coach remains Gary Kubiak, who took a full 6 years to get the Texans to their first playoff berth as a franchise, an incredible amount of patience that would never happen today. And then, of course, Kubiak went on to the Broncos and won a Super Bowl, nursing Peyton Manning along to a title. After that, the Texans were working with Bill O'Brien, a coach who's caught a lot of heat for the mess he created in his last couple seasons with Houston, but deserves some credit for getting the Texans to the playoffs 4 times and doing the impossible, winning a playoff game with Brock Osweiler. But O'Brien wore his welcome out in H-Town as a GM. Then we went into the absolute abyss. Ideally, you're supposed to give head coaches more than a year to build their identity and implement their scheme if you want any hope of succeeding in the long run. But it was one and done, not just once, but twice for both David Culley and Lovie Smith, the latter of whom nearly fucked over the Texans with a Week 18 victory that lost them the first overall pick, unaware that the last-second halting of the tank would become the best thing that's ever happened to the Texans. In a very bizarre Jack Easterby fever dream, the Texans were grooming Josh McCown to become their head coach while he was still on the roster. Instead, because the optics looked bad, they hired Culley, and Easterby's vision to let McCown coach the team went up in flames when he and the Texans parted ways in October of 2022, and thus the team could begin making rational decisions once again, leading to their ascension as one of the most promising young teams in the NFL. Before we get to the worst team that can't hire coaches for shit, quick shout out to the Carolina Panthers, who under David Tepper have gone the Browns route, hiring massive idiot Matt Rule, and then hiring and firing Frank Reich all in one season, creating maybe the least desired head coaching job in the NFL. And finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars. When Doug Peterson entered the scene as their new head coach in 2022, it was like a breath of fresh air. The adult finally in the room. The guy you knew would never miss a team flight to stay in Ohio to finger blast a bar skank, or literally and ironically kick a kicker. But before they landed on Urban Meyer, the Jags had quite the revolving door of head coaches too. An unforgettable 2-14 campaign led by Mike, his name literally translates to bullshit malarkey, a stellar 14-48 record from Gus Bradley, and Doug Marrone.
What a maroon.
Marrone malarkeyed his way to the AFC Championship in 2017 on the back of the Jacksonville defense, then followed up that absolute fluke season with records of 5-11, 6-10, and 1-15. The Urban Meyer era in Jacksonville is well documented, but for all the bullshit he pulled, the most unforgivable move he ever made was thinking it was a good idea to let Tim Tebow play tight end during the preseason. Seriously, we as a society have really glossed over the fact that the Heisman-winning quarterback, barely serviceable commercial actor, and New York Mets legend Tim Tebow took snaps as a tight end for the Jags in 2021. Yeah, I didn't forget. If that wasn't the canary in the coal mine for the absolute clown show that was to come, I don't know what was. The coaches that came before him were bad, but not bad guys. In his partial season as the Jags head coach, Meyer was vindictive, abusive, and just plain god-awful when he took the jump to the NFL. He violated practice rules, he touched a woman who was very much not his wife, while the rest of the team was in Jacksonville, and he finally got the boot after a video revealed that his boot struck kicker Josh Lambo prior to a preseason game. I mean, it's all good though, Jaguars. You could be the Cowboys. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.